Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast in the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now, on to this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to Dad's Dating After Divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, the Divorced Advocate and the founder of the Divorced Advocate community. And my colleague here is...
my name is Ralph. I go by the pen name of DSO, which stands for Dad Starting Over. And you can find out more at dadstartingover.com or by reading one of my books, including the popular Dead Bedroom Fix.
God, every time you promote and I got to remember to do that. You're good at it. That's why you're killing it, man.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely check that. Check out Ralph's stuff. A lot of great stuff. And we got a lot of good stuff today, Ralph. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Man, it's just 2022 was exciting and interesting. I know that you had some fantastic success with Dad Starting Over and your stuff, and so I just want to give you some kudos. And we started working together, and I'm pretty excited about the stuff that we're doing. And this podcast has just started to have just a ton of downloads, which has been really cool and exciting too. Good. So I guess that's confirmation that we're doing something right, or at least we're hitting on something that is a need out there. So
for sure,
that's good. So today we wanted to chat about. You and I talked about this poor guy at Disneyland who jumped off a parking structure, and so. Oof. What we're titling this, gentleman, is the 9 critical risk management questions for dads dating after divorce, and we're couching this in this. I mean, this poor guy's story of he was a principal for like 22 years in Florida, and just so my understanding from reading about it, just an upstanding guy that just took care of kids and students and was great. And he got remarried, and he was married to a woman with some daughters, and they had a heated exchange one night, and she just decided to call the cops. And well, we know what happens when a guy raises his voice and a woman gets scared. That he went to jail, and he was facing some misdemeanor charges. I don't know exactly what they were, but unfortunately, and this is probably some mental health issues, he felt so helpless that he took his life. And
yeah, I mean, you just pointed to the mental health issue thing. The first thing that stuck out to me, that story, was if you read it, his relationship with this woman was secret. That's odd. And they were together for like some 3 years. So he didn't tell anyone that he was married to this woman. I thought, okay, right away, red flag. Like, what the hell's going on here? That's weird.
Why?
And then the fact that he was facing a misdemeanor charge, which I'm no lawyer, but that, it's on your record forever. It's not, it's kind of like jaywalking. It's not a big deal. It's not like he'll get pulled over and they go, whoa, we have a felon here. No, Right. He got with this weird secret relationship. He got with the wrong person, obviously, and he's facing a misdemeanor charge, possibly. So he decides to off himself. I'm like, something doesn't add up here. And you hit on it. I think this poor guy, not to throw him under the bus, the poor dude, he was struggling with something, obviously, and this was the tipping point. This pushed him over the edge, because there's a category of men that will enter into a relationship like that and have that situation, and they will just roll their eyes and go, crazy people, huh? They're everywhere, and get out of the relationship and be done with it. Well, his coping mechanism, he didn't have any. He spun out of control, and in a very grandiose fashion at Disneyland of all freaking places, he offed himself. I mean, something's going on here.
Yeah, and you hit it also, which is we probably are just seeing and learning a little bit the tip of the iceberg of what was going on, because the warnings, it seems like the warning signs around this was an unhealthy relationship, probably from, I would guess, from the start. If it ended like this, there's a high probability from the start it was an unhealthy relationship, which leads us into talking about ways that dating after divorce, and particularly when we are dating with our own kids, we're dating probably women with their own kids, and the dynamics that go into this. It is you've done it. I continue to do it, and it's very complex. And so there's a lot of moving parts that go along with that. And I have found, I just did a brief Google search before in researching for this of I did a few different searches around dads dating after divorce risks, dads dating after divorce, protecting yourself, dads dating, and literally no results at all on Google about anything, any information, anything about how you go about this, or how you manage the risk, or how you protect yourself, what to look out for, how to go about it. And so that just told me that we really need to talk about this. And we'd already talked about, this topic, but this is really something that's important, because I know in your work you deal with a lot, you deal with a lot of guys that are dating after divorce. That is my job, right? I'm working with guys through divorce and then post divorce. And so, man, it is a struggle, and it is difficult and challenging. And so, I'd like for us to talk through these 9 questions, and just obviously we were not able to get through this in real intimate detail, but that's also why you're there for coaching. You've got your crew of coaches at DSO. I'm coaching and I'm helping the guys through this. So guys listening, get engaged. And even if it is not with Rolf or one of his guys or me, get engaged with a therapist or a coach or somebody that can help you dive into these questions and get the help and support you need to have a healthy relationship after divorce. I think, and Rolf, tell me your thoughts on this. I think we all, I feel, and are wired to want to have relationships and be in relationship, and it's part of how we grow. And that's maybe a little contrary to what we hear some of this free agent lifestyle and MGTOW guys and whatnot. I understand what they're saying, but I feel like it's important that we do stay in relation with each other.
Yeah, most men want to have a partner to go through life with. As unmanly as that may sound to some people out there in the internet sphere of man stuff, most of us want to have some kind of partner. Well, that just by its nature, you're making yourself vulnerable, and you're putting yourself out there and saying, "Here I am, world." And you can get hurt. And but a lot of men have learned is you can get hurt pretty freaking badly too. And it all comes down to, I guess it's a twofold thing. Do we want to go down too far into the rabbit hole of what to look out for as far as women are concerned? Super important, but we don't want to lose sight of the other side, which is taking care of what's up here. Like that dude in this example, the poor news story with the Disneyland thing. I don't think he ever addressed that. Obviously, I don't know his prior relationship experience. Maybe that's a good place to start. I don't remember from the story if he was married before, if he had relationships with any kind of women before that at all, if this was brand spanking new to him, if he was like this quintessential nice guy, socially awkward, no experience with women, and he finally found the quote woman of his dreams, I can see where that would be this extremely troubling, life altering, reality altering, holy shit, I don't know if I can cope with this. There's this a phenomenon that I see quite often with dudes that I talk to post-divorce, which is, I went through this terrible divorce. My heart was really broken. Financially, I'm broken, everything else. And then I put myself out into the world, and I'll be damned if a whopping a month and a half, 2 months into dating, I think I found Mrs. Right.
Yeah, right.
And And as much as you try to rationalize with the guy and say, please take your time, please don't jump into this, dude, you're at a very vulnerable state. He'll be like, I know, but I've really studied this and I've really looked at her from A to Z and she's checking every box. And I'll be damned, I think I just got really lucky, and he'll say in his defense, he'll say, I'm not going to marry her tomorrow. I'll take my time. But, I think this is the one. And then, it could be months, it could be a year down the line. He learns that, oh shit, I did it all over again. I've overlooked some things, or maybe he didn't overlook some things. Maybe she pulled the wool over his eyes and he gets his heart broken. What those guys will tell you is that heartbreak from that breakup with the rebound chick, as they call it, is actually more painful than the divorce that he went through. Why?
Yep.
Because he feels like the universe is saying, sorry about all that heartache and terribleness you went through. Here's your princess. Here's the one and he's like, oh, thank God. There's something to, there's positive in the world. There's love out there. There's good, and it's not all horrible. And then life says, psych, just kidding. It's worse than you thought. And some of these men are really, really, really crushed. For those that, have a difficult time coping, they become suicidal and they drugs, alcohol, whatever. And I think that's probably what we're seeing with this guy. Not to go on and on about this, but I'm trying to think. I don't know why his name is Anthony Bourdain, famous chef. Right. And I did an article about him. This was several years back. He killed himself.
Right.
And he had been through, prior to the relationship he was in when he killed himself, he had 2 marriages prior that failed, and he took them very, very hard. And basically those marriages failed because, if I'm remembering right, it was tough to marry up his marriage and his career. And his career was really taking off, and he was traveling all over the place, and he was very highly devoted to his writing and everything else. And the marriage just kind of fell by the wayside. And the wives weren't all that supportive of it. You need to be here with your children. You need to do this and this and this. And they eventually went their separate ways, and they grew apart. And he was heartbroken over it, and he had a very difficult time coping with it. He was a past drug addict and everything else. Mm-hmm. And then he found his Miss Perfect, because she would travel everywhere with him. She was this misfit type person like him, this punk rock type personality, and they would go everywhere. And then very publicly, she ended up cheating on him. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't cope with it. And he killed himself the next day after finding out about it. And I think that's the quintessential example of, he thought he found Mrs. Right. Everything was Yahoo, perfect, great. He was 60 some odd years old, if I remember right. It took so many decades, but he finally found her. And then the rug was pulled out from under him. Now, when you look at Tony and people like him, you say Anthony Bourdain, Tony Bourdain, people like him, you go, somebody didn't do the hard work of figuring out why it is they keep getting into these messes. Somebody didn't, he was a past drug addict, yet he was a pretty prolific drinker. Sounds like somebody didn't quite go through the whole process of recovery and addiction recovery and all that other stuff. So long-winded way of saying, let's not lose sight of the fact that men, you got some work to do out there. If you don't do that work, you are more apt to find women like this guy did, the Disneyland dude did.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, which is a lot of what you just described with these men is very emotional and feeling based, and then it's just driven by that. And there are ways in which you can systematically do this work and get yourself to a place that you're in a position to have a healthy relationship again, and then also a way in which you can conduct yourself within that relationship that is healthy and systematic, that takes some of, it sounds unromantic. I'm not sure if you and I have talked about this, but a lot of this sometimes is unromantic. Like having these conversations or doing this work or whatever. It's not the storybook crap that we hear on TV or we watch or we read, or that women subscribe to a lot, but men do too, because we get caught up into it as well. And so that's part of this 9 critical questions. And I'm taking this directly from Shawn T. Smith's book, The Practical Guide for, or the Tactical Guide to Women. And we've had Shawn on, and he's talking about, he's a clinical psychologist, and these guys are brilliant, right, at breaking all this stuff down, looking at it systematically, taking the emotion out of it, and making sure that you're setting yourself up for success. And in his book, the first half is exactly what you just described, which is getting your poop in a pile, if you will, understanding your history, knowing what your values are, structuring all of that. And then the second half of the book, and where I took this from, like chapter 7, I think it was, is then identifying other women, women that you want to be in a relationship with that do have these different values, or these similar values, but also these similar traits that potentially can lead to a healthy relationship. And that's really important. It's really important to take that emotion out.
The term is that I often use is pragmatic, being very stoic, pragmatic about it, and trying as much as humanly possible to leave emotion out of the equation. That's not possible to completely 100% leave emotion. That's why you're with the woman.
Right.
She strikes a chord emotionally, and who's this? And I like her, and I think this could be something good. Oh boy, that's tough to then say, well, let's take a time out and really think about this. And it could be as simple as the logistics of our lives don't match up. We can't meet each other. Kids get in the way. Careers get in the way. You're traveling too much. I don't think this is going to work for me. I still love you as a person. We can still be on a friendly basis. But as far as you and I being this close romantic partnership together, it ain't going to work. That sounds, what I just said sounds really basic. But when you're in the heat of the moment, that's really, really tough to do.
Yeah, or somebody that just is not at the same place mentally and emotionally as you are, has not done the work. And that's something we're gonna dive into here with these questions. Is it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. It just means that they're not somebody that's suitable for you at this time. And that's okay. And it's better to walk away now than to 3.5 years down the road, get into this and go, oh crap, what did I do? To use a religious term, I'm unequally yoked, right? Like I've done this work and she hasn't. And so this is not really working. And it goes back to exactly what you described in the beginning. And then you're like, oh man, this is, what do I do now? Right. And that's why the divorce rate on second marriages is like 70% or something like that. Some huge high percentage rate.
Yeah. Well, the big reason I think for that is because once you've done it once and you realize, boy, that really sucked going through the process, but it is possible. And you're not so gun shy anymore about saying, I'm out. And also, people, I think, as we get older, become less patient with things. So when we see something that really makes us go, oof, instead of saying oof in our first marriage, like we did in our first marriage, and say, oh, well, that's life. That's the way it is. We say, oof. Yeah, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
and to be honest with you, I don't know which approach is necessarily the healthiest. Obviously, I think somewhere in the middle.
A balance. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's dive into these questions. And again, these are directly from Shawn T. Smith's book, The Tactical Guide to Women. And I highly suggest anybody listening out there to check it out. And also check out our previous episode where we chatted with him about the book. And he's got some great YouTube videos.
Yeah, very good.
He's just a solid guy and just really knows his stuff around relationships. But he breaks it down into three different categories to make these assessments. And again, I want to just reiterate what you said, which is this only happens after you've done the work to get yourself in a position to start dating. So if you're in the middle of a divorce and you're trying to do an assessment on women that you could potentially date, this is probably not the right way to go about it. Now, that doesn't mean that hasn't happened and that could work. It has, but the probabilities are low. You need to do your self-work first. And so this is once you've done that and you get into a position like, okay, I'm ready to be out there. I just want to manage my risk. I want to know some questions I need to be thinking about around personality and behavior, et cetera. And so these are nine critical risk management questions. The first is around assessing her clarity. The first question is, are her coping skills reliable?
Yeah.
And that's a big one, man.
And how can we determine that? Here's the catch, though. Here's the catch for a lot of these. Time. Just being with them, watching them interact with life and all the crap that life throws at you. What are her coping skills? Well, if you shack up with a woman after knowing her for 2 or 3 months, you're not going to be able to see that.
Right.
You see that by, going on trips with her, watching her when her parent dies, watching her when something goes bad at work, and all these other things. I'm glad that's number one, because, oh boy, is that everything.
Man, it's huge. It is huge. And the guys you described, like that move in after 3 months or engage after 6 or whatever, you haven't done it. There's this old adage, you got to date for the time frame of a box of salt. It's like an old adage, because a box of salt used to take a year. Like they'd buy these big boxes of salt and they'd have them in the kitchen, and it would take a full year to get through this box. You need to date through a box of salt, which means, and let's talk about this for a little bit, because that's probably the best point. And if anybody else is going to stop listening right now, take this point, which is take the time to date for at least a period of time. And I don't know what you feel. I feel at least a year is something that you really need to just be in dating mode with, right? Just before you're starting to make these grandiose plans, moving in, doing anything, date for at least a year.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. Now it's like dating the one person for a year before you make any concrete plans of cohabitation, everything. Yeah. And the case could be made even longer than that. Yeah.
Well, I would, and I think Shawn in the book says date until that honeymoon period goes away, which probably is dependent upon the couple. But he says something to the effect like when those cute things stop being cute anymore, then that's kind of, and then date for a year after that, I think is what he says. So that could be 2, that could be 3 years before then you're really thinking about doing stuff.
And what makes it even more difficult is that honeymoon stage can be prolonged, especially in this day and age when we have 2 career people who are, I can't meet this Wednesday or Thursday, blah, blah, blah. I can meet Sunday afternoon. And so you have this very natural split and scarcity, which keeps that honeymoon stage going. And a lot of people I'm learning are discovering, like, we kind of like that dynamic of 2 individual lives, independent lives. I think we want to just keep this up. Why mess with a good thing? Because what a lot of people learn is, as soon as we say we're not so independent anymore and we throw each other and we're living with each other 24/7, all of a sudden that's when you're put it to the test.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jude with a quick reminder about the Divorced Advocate Foundation for Fathers, which is our nonprofit that helps dads through divorce with legal education, free or reduced cost coaching, and mental health resources. If you own a business or know someone who does, there's an easy way to help by connecting credit card processing through our partner program. Part of the fees go straight to the foundation with no added cost to the business, and 98% of businesses are actually able to save money on their processing fees. It's a win-win. So if you know a business that accepts credit cards, get them in touch with me by sending a warm introduction email to jude@thedivorcedadvocate.com, or give me a call directly at 720-255-1021. Right. The exact reason why post-COVID there's so many divorces.
Yeah.
So many people were forced to actually be in relation with each other, in like real close relation with each other. So yeah, that's a great point. But around these coping skills in order to get through a relationship long term, there's going to, and I'm sure you can speak to this because you've been married for how many years now? Remarried for how many years now?
5 now.
5 now, and so you were married previously. You're going to need to have a skill set in place that is going to allow you to deal with the shit that goes on with life, because life's going to throw it at you. And like you mentioned before, with the things recurring, and if you're not dealing with it, then it's going to keep coming at you. So if you don't have these skills, if she doesn't have these skills, and you have to learn those on the fly, that's going to be a huge freaking challenge. If you've got a health issue, you've got a death, you've got something big going on.
We could stay on this one for the entire episode, because This is something I hear again and again and again when I talk to men that are in really like toxic, kind of crazy relationships, and it's when did the wheels fall off? They can always point to some event in life, holy shit event, as I call it. And a lot of the time it's when our kid was born. When our kid was born, my wife went through a very very normal postpartum period, and she never quite pulled herself out of it. And she gained a ton of weight, and she became, her coping mechanism became the overeating. She gained, 200 pounds, and she felt horrible about herself, and it just spiraled out of control after that. And it's not always the eating. Sometimes it's overspending. Sometimes it's substance abuse, infidelities, trying to get attention from others, but something kind of sparked it. And I can, almost every story, you can pinpoint it to one little event, and it always points to the same thing. Life threw her something that she wasn't quite ready for, and she didn't cope with it very well. And, that can lead to a whole host of issues for both of you. So that's huge, 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 huge.
Yep. And then it goes back to exactly what you said. You only can see this if you spend the time with her and you do that over an extended period. So this dynamic that you just described, which is we see each other once in a while, that's great. You're not really getting into the intimacy of a relationship and knowing and understanding how somebody copes with stuff and what skill set they do or don't have unless you are doing it regularly and you're doing it for a period of time.
Mm-hmm. You got it. And this mindset transfers outside of the world of the romantic relationship. What if you got a guy you hired for your company? Are you going to 2 months later immediately promote him to vice president?
Right.
You're gonna let him, go through the paces for a period of years to see how he does with all these things. And when your sales go down, how does he react, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And you just said it, period of years, right?
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. I love it. Nobody's getting promoted to president, vice president in 3 months or 6 months. Why are you promoting her to wife in 3 months or 6 months? It's absolute freaking insanity.
And if you were in the job and everybody, and you did promote the new dude you just hired 3 months ago, everybody'd be like, well, what's going on here? This dude must have some kind of secret on you. Something's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. Everyone would immediately say something is off here. But not so much with the old relationship thing. There's an army of people ready to pat you on the back saying, I'm glad you found your soulmate. That's awesome. Go.
Exactly. And if she's a single mother, even better.
You're the hero. Yeah.
You're a saint. Yeah. Exactly. Well, the difference is we don't have any Disney movies in corporate America to help us to understand why that's so much better. Anyway, okay. So next question number 2. You're right. We could talk on that for the rest of the time. The number 2 one, and I did not recognize this one until I read Shawn's book years ago. Actually, the next 2 ones about clarity. But is she inquisitive?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Is she interested in you? Is she interested in your life? Is she interested in what you have to say, how you feel? Does she actively listen to that?
Yeah. Is she not an asshole?
Yeah, well, I mean, that would probably be the bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in one of the next sections, of whether she treats you good or not.
If she's so hyper focused on herself, there's a personality type called very avoidant, and they are very or attachment style rather, where you're very avoidant, where you don't like a lot of the personal, intimate, yada yada. They don't like that kind of stuff, and they're not the type to, when you walk in the door, give you a hug and say, "Tell me about your day." They just don't. They don't have that mechanism in there, and they don't make the best relationship partners. Not for the majority of us. So I like that. Is she inquisitive?
Yeah, they're the ones that walk in at the end of the day and tell you all about their day for the first hour and a half.
They unload.
Right. And then if you can get a, how was your day, honey, then you're lucky, let alone getting into the intimate details of that. But again, this goes back to spending time, right? Is it somebody that is cognizant of you and what your needs are and what your life is about, et cetera. And then to just expand upon that, the next question, the next clarity question is she assertive? And that would be part of that as well. Is she assertive in doing things like asking about your day, doing things? Is she assertive in being understanding of what it is that she needs and what she wants and what her values are?
And that one's a little tougher, I think, talking about the assertiveness as far as her saying, here are boundaries I have, here are expectations. That is not a very feminine trait,
Sure.
That assertiveness. Women are typically more passive and more agreeable is the personality trait. Women tend to be more agreeable than men. And that is something we have to kind of teach our daughters, that it's okay to be a bitch sometimes and just say, no, I'm not doing that, or no, I don't want to do that, and here's what I expect. And women tend to have a hard time with that. So is she very assertive? Well, it may take a bit for her to feel comfortable being so. I say that, and there's probably a lot of men laughing right now because they say, "Oh, you haven't met my ex-wife."
Yeah,
She was plenty disagreeable and plenty assertive. Well, that's not every woman, especially at the honeymoon stage.
Right. And there's a difference with being disagreeable and being assertive. And there's a way that you can be just assertive as well as being, I don't know if I want to use the word like subservient or
submissive.
Thank you. Yeah, being submissive as well in being assertive. So that would look like, so in Shawn uses this example in the book is you can still be assertive in stating that, like he uses the example of, well, what would you like to eat for dinner, honey? And you've heard this, like, I don't know, what do you want? I don't know, what do you want? Like you go back for it and nobody's being assertive. And hopefully as a man, like you might, if you can still be assertive, but you still want some feedback to know, like, is there something that you're wanting? Like, is there a desire that you have? And she could say, instead of like, I don't know, what do you want? It would look more like, I don't really have a preference. I would like for you to decide. To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.